Good evening. Tonight's July 24th. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:04 p.m. of the Milton School Building Committee. With us tonight, I'll just go through a roll call vote as I see people online and then in the room. If you just respond as present, and Dr. Miranda is just about to join us, so grab her first. But Tim Lombard.
Sorry, slow on the unmute there. I'm present.
Good. Thank you. Aqua Bong. Gotcha. There's no audio coming from you, Aqua. Just I saw you speaking, but we didn't hear anything, but I know you're there. Thank you. Dr. Miranda.
Yes.
All right, perfect. Mr. Zulus.
Present.
Mr. Loring.
Present.
Mr. Tereshak.
Present.
Mr. O'Rourke, present. Perfect. First thing on our second thing on our agenda, I always tend to do that, is citizen speak. So we reserve the first 15 minutes of our meetings for citizens that wish to speak. We ask that you please let us know your name and address, and then we ask that you limit your commentary to 3 minutes. So if anyone is here to speak, if you use the raise your hand function, and I think I know there'll be one. Perfect. All right, Mr. Agostino, the floor is yours for 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I don't think it'll take 3 minutes. I just want to mention, it's been brought to my attention that one of the members several meetings ago raised the same concern that the school building committee, I believe at the Maytown meeting, it was Article 33, with an appropriation, which if my memory is correct, it was something like 275,000. Nowhere in that appropriation is the language that allows for those funds to be used to pay for the appraisals. And I don't remember which member, so I just want to bring that to your attention. And also on your agenda, it notes I forgot, Diane DiTullio Agostino, Precinct 9 Town Meeting member and Chair of the Commission on Disability. I'm so sorry, forgot that part. On your agenda, it notes that citizens can speak within the scope of the school building committee authority. And that's my second point that I want to raise to your attention or bring to your attention. The school building committee does not own the land. We just went through the Maytown meeting. The land that the appraisals need to be done on is owned by the town of Milton, which would be under the jurisdiction, I believe, of the select board. And therefore, it would be the request for proposal being put together and being put out to the public by the select board in order to get these appraisals. And right now, and I know you can't have a dialogue, but I did try to reach, we used to have the individual for purchasing and doing RFPs, and he would help committees to get the RFPs, the language of the RFPs, and to know how to go about it. And currently the town, that position is open. So I'm bringing this to your attention because I was not able to bring it to the or to discuss it, to get actual answers from someone who specializes in doing the RFPs. So thank you very much. Those are a couple of points that I hope eventually we can get some answers on, but not this evening, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other members of the public? Just work in the waiting room, making sure everybody gets in. And not seeing any others. So the fourth thing or the third thing on our agenda was approval of the meeting minutes. However, what I'd like to do is table that and move to agenda item. Pull it up here. Sorry, my mouse just froze.
It's 4A.
Yeah, 4A, which is the Brush Hill Road property. And again, here it is. Yeah, so item number 4A, old business discussion, possible vote, Brush Hill Road property. The reason I asked that is Carl Franceschi from DRA Architects is with us tonight, was kind enough to attend. So I hope there's no objection to moving that. Hearing none. Perfect. So as our committee's aware, we've gone through kind of our own internal reviews, I think the past 2 to 3 meetings, looking at the Brush Hill Road property. And ideally tonight, I'd like to come to a consensus whether we're for it or against it. But prior to everybody doing that, we have been talked about reaching out to DRA Architecture. Myself, Mr. Zulus had a call with Carl recently, and he was kind enough to join us tonight. So I wanted to just give you his perspective of his thoughts on this property too. So Carl, if you don't mind, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Sure, thanks, Sean. Good evening, everyone. Carl Franceschi with the RA. I recognize a few names and faces. Good to see you again. Yeah, I think from our perspective, it's a fairly easy decision or recommendation without getting too deep into it. Just looking at the available information from publicly available GIS information and so forth. This parcel in consideration is not very favorable for the construction of at least the program that we were talking about previously on Guile Road for a middle school with possible preschool wing. The number of factors that, if you were making pros and cons, would all be in the con category. The slope, the topography is really the first one that catches our eye. That it's a 10 to 12% slope across this parcel, and just to put that in perspective, most roadways that we would see associated with schools, with buses and cars and parents driving and all, would the maximum slope we would try to keep it to is 6 or 7%. So this is like twice as steep, in a sense, trying to introduce just access to the property. The building itself would end up being necessarily sort of having to be a compact footprint on multiple stories, perhaps up to 4 levels, stepping up the hill and kind of single-sided for a couple of those levels. In other words, getting daylight on only one side of the building, and the other side of it being built into the hillside with retaining walls and so forth. So really the configuration is not really ideal either. The overall size of it, while the acreage may seem, doable, really once you look at the configuration of it, long and narrow, it makes it hard to sort of conveniently get parking and drop off and a playing field associated even with a compact building footprint there. A couple other things, just understanding that this is a pretty valuable piece of residential property. Just the cost of acquisition, the cost of construction, certainly another factor that in that sense, only money. It doesn't prevent you from developing it, but it is going to be significant compared to a quote unquote typical middle school development. What else? Probably too, just being in a residential neighborhood is, with the way that the site may have to be developed, there may not be good buffers left between the school and some neighbors that are in close proximity here too. So all of those factors, add up to not a very welcoming, rosy picture here for acquiring this property for development of a new school. So, and that's, again, sort of seat of the pants, looking at the available map and GIS information, not having walked the site, but because there are contours available and the topography, we do have a view of it. We understand the houses at the top, the Brush Hill Road side of it, may also be historic and may not literally prevent development, but certainly would be another issue against it. And the old stone walls that are there too, are all make it less than kind of appropriate for institutional development of this scale. So happy to answer questions or clarify anything that I hope I didn't burst any bubbles here if people thought this was the answer to your situation there.
Well, I appreciate it, Carl. You know, for members of the committee that have any questions, you know, I'll open it up. You know, if you have questions for Carl or essentially, you know, some of the reasonings that he provided. Anybody online, I'll just keep an eye on your raised hand function if you are. Nope. Anybody here? Mike?
Yeah, I just have, thank you, Carl, for that, and I
Mhm.
just have a question about the additional cost. You said it could be significant. Do we have a sense of what that means in terms of, you know, what additional estimated costs there could be?
Well, the two factors there, the additional acquisition cost, obviously above and beyond a typical school, but because it is valuable residential property, but the construction cost, sort of surplus or surcharge, you might say, is probably on the order of magnitude of being twice as expensive. The site work portion of the construction of the building is probably twice as expensive as a school on a, you know, relatively flat site because of the terracing, the cut and fill, and the tall retaining walls, terraced parking, things like that. So haven't done any, you know, real calculations, but, you know, if this is you know, just to round things off, $100 million project or something, the site work, you know, typically might be 15 million of that. And this project, you might have to double that to, you know, be 25 or $30 million. So that's like a $10 million premium, I guess, something in that order of magnitude, Mike.
Thank you, Carl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Dr. Miranda, you're up.
Yes, just Carl, if you could expand a little bit more in terms of the challenges with the buffer zone or not enough sort of
Mhm.
space for that. Just, I'm just thinking of Guile Road and how we've gone back and forth around the buffer zone.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
just in terms of what we would need, given the fact that there are residencies right next to it.
Yeah. Just the nature of construction on a sloping site, you know, you have to create terraces. You can do retaining walls, you know, to try to minimize how extensive the grading is horizontally, but it's you know, probably or likely that you know, the tree buffer on either side is going to be fairly limited to, you know, maybe, I don't know, 30 feet wide, something like that, perhaps, depending on what, you know, we're trying to do here. But and some of those houses, particularly on the, I think it's the west side of, there were some significant houses very close to the property lines there. So and like we said, if this ends up being a multi-story building, it's likely to have impact on those neighbors. That might be an issue.
All right. Aqua, any hands raised? You recognized?
Thank you. Carl, thank you for your report. It's my understanding, help me if my understanding is wrong here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good. Um, it's my understanding that from your professional viewpoint, there's really no need to do a detailed calculation to arrive at this not being one of the better sites for this project. Is it that glaring?
I would say so, yes, since all those factors kind of add up to be, you know, all kind of challenges to be overcome and you know, premiums to be paid. It unless you were in really dire situation with no other available, you know, properties, I'm not sure you'd want to or need to rather do much further investigation to dismiss this as a, you know, reasonable or appropriate site for a school.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The one other, Carl, that we talked about previously too was the through road. You know, that, you know, your take on it also because of those slopes. You know, the ability to have a road that would traverse through the site, you know, from Blue Hill Avenue up to Brush Hill Parkway wouldn't be able to occur because we wouldn't have the switchbacks to be able to zigzag back and forth to
Right.
navigate
Most,
that
most
slope.
likely, you'd end up with like a lower level entrance and an upper level entrance with separate drop off and parking areas, you know, related to each of the roads. But the only through road might be, you know, some kind of fairly steep paved fire lane that, you know, maybe a fire engine in an emergency would utilize, but not day to day, not on a snowy or icy day or something. You wouldn't want buses or parents trying to handle that because like we said, yeah, because it is narrow, you can't really do the switchbacks, the diagonal kind of road that you would typically see on a steep site, which would be safer too, just to keep things under control. But trying to go, it'd be more like a ski run if it was just a straight shot up or down, you know.
Interesting. Yeah, Mike.
So thank you. So Carl, just to put a point on it, you think we'd have to do 2 sets of drop-offs or entrances and exits and 2 sets of parking on 2 different levels? Is that?
That's you know, very first impression, you know, given this kind of situation and the terrain and all, so that it's not necessarily a negative thing to have multiple entrances. Typically, we do want to separate buses from cars on a school site, and so buses could be on one entrance and associated with, say, teacher parking lot, and then the drop off and parents could be on another level so that they're separated. So that in itself isn't necessarily a negative, but it does kind of limit, again, because there's very little level land available as to how the parking is done and how the drop off, you know, can be done. It has to be fairly level there too. Cars can't park on a very steep slope. Typically, you try to keep that to 5% or slope. So.
Thank you, Paul.
Any other questions, comments from anyone? All right. So, Carl, with that, you know, I appreciate you taking the time tonight to jump on. You're welcome to stay on and enjoy the rest of the meeting if you want, or you're welcome to jump off, whatever you like is.
Well, thanks for taking me out of order. I appreciate that, Sean. I'll leave you to the rest of the meeting, but I'll stay in touch with Milton though, whenever you have a question or follow up on other issues. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Yep. Thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. So I think, you know, based on our previous meeting, we need to report back to the select board kind of our take or findings for this land for the use of the school. So that's why in the agenda tonight I had it as, you know, discussion, possible votes. So if people are comfortable, you know, I think it would be good to have a vote on this, and if, you know, whether we vote to not approve it or to approve it, it will just allow the select board some direction, at least from the school building committee. So that's why I had it listed tonight as a possible vote. Comfortable. Okay, seeing consensus. So on that end, it would just basically take a motion from somebody in a second, and then we could go to a vote.
How would we phrase the motion? The motion, I make a motion to
this-
vote to reject the Brush Hill Road property as a feasible option for the purpose of the school building committee's efforts to construct a school.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask, Mike. So for us, should we make the motion that we, for example, we vote that it should be used for a school and doesn't pass? Obviously, we're saying nay. I'm just not sure the best way to phrase the motion
Well,
for it.
I mean, the committee's already moving forward with one project, right? And voted to move forward with one project. So I guess there could be a motion to give you know, not to consider, not to recommend. Not to recommend that the select board engage in discussions for the purchase of this property.
For the purpose of the school building.
Exactly.
Friendly amendment?
Friendly amendment.
Okay.
That's the motion. I can second it.
Yeah, is that the motion, Mike?
Oh, did I make the motion?
Well, as a
Oh,
friend-
all right,
I'm
okay.
not sure.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I think it was Mark that made the motion with the friendly amendment from Mike.
From Mike, which
Yeah.
I graciously accept.
So
Mike can second.
So Mike could
Sure,
second,
I'll second.
Michael second. Okay, so to be clear, the motion is to not recommend the property on Brush Hill Road for the use of a new school building. So,
I think we're saying the motion is to not recommend that the select board engage in further discussions for the purpose, for the purchase of the property for the purpose of a school. I think that's.
Yeah.
What we want to.
I like that language. You've made motions before.
Some good, some bad,
okay,
some passed, some failed.
all right. So the motion's been moved and seconded, and so we'll go to a roll call vote.
Well, can we,
Yeah,
yeah,
please.
just Sean,
Yep.
just to lay out the reason, I mean, I think Mr.
Yeah,
Franceschi,
discussion,
yeah,
discussion, yep.
I think Mr. Franceschi, laid out all the negatives for this property. Those that jump out to me, among all of them, are the slope. That seems to be a considerable negative. And the additional cost. I mean, the estimated additional cost, the land acquisition, you're talking about $3 to $7 million, depending, probably mean 7 million, because you need both sides, if you're gonna have entrances for both sides, which seem to be required. And then you, according to Mr. Franceschi, you're talking about a $10 million premium for site work on top of that. So you're talking about, $15 to $20 million of a premium for property that, according to Mr. Franceschi, is not, has significant challenges on many different levels. So based on that,
There's probably additional costs for the building as well. To be able to build a building on that
Here.
many levels like that and narrower, so we're gonna have more facade costs, just the cost of the building would be higher as well.
It's also gonna be a spread out building instead of a nice neat stack as what it relates to HVAC ducts.
Yeah,
Plumbing
yeah,
and all the
yeah,
other
like,
things. You can't
more
discuss
utility
right now.
facilities.
Yeah.
and you said something about sunlight too, because you're building into a hill. You said there were sunlight issues or
Only one side, he said,
one side, yeah.
so that's not ideal for any setting, really.
Yeah, so essentially you terrace the building up, one side of it's facing out, one side's in the dirt. You see what I mean? So I think that's where he was saying of the more you embed that terrace part of it, think of like the layers of a cake getting, pushed back. Those then negate any sunlight coming in, so that's one of them.
Yeah, I agree with the concerns, just, the slope maybe could be overcome if the site wasn't so narrow, it's just so narrow.
Yeah.
So sloped. And then, the idea even of an upper and a lower entrance. I don't know if DRA got into the, historical building piece when they were doing the assessment, but the upper entrance, that means you're doing some disruption to the horses up there. So we can't just cut that off and sell that, as to reduce the land acquisition cost a bit.
Mhm.
We'll know what that would mean in terms of disruption to the historical properties, which obviously is something we don't want to do. Given the recommendation. from
This
the-
parcel, sorry, also didn't achieve some of the other criteria that we had originally laid out as a school building committee. Walkability was a big one that we talked about, and this has a very low walkability score.
Yeah, the other thing, when you mentioned the upper lot and the lower lot, ideally you have a road that goes through, so you can have entrance on one side and exit on the other. Now we would have two entries and two exits instead of one of each, so that just eats up more of the acreage that is disappearing quickly on us, so. And elevates the cost again.
Is it fair to say that the walkability is almost zero?
Yeah, just if you lived on that Brush Hill.
But there are no sidewalks.
There's no
Brush Hill.
sidewalks.
Yeah, that's right.
So I mean, I walk that, but it's very limited.
Any other comments? I think the one other that popped in my head, and Mark, you brought this up at the last meeting, talking to the Mass Historic Commission and stuff like that, they would also want, if we're doing anything near those buildings or disrupting those buildings, another alternatives analysis of, what else have we looked at? And I see that just kind of, playing it out a little bit, disrupting the time, or just being another thing that's kind of out of our control that we would need to like go through and do. On top of all the other things, it's just a thin, very sloped site, and I wish it would work, because I think it would make everything a lot easier, but I just see it being too difficult, too expensive, overall for everything that we're doing. Anyone else online just looking for raised hands, and just in case if I missed any more discussion was going on?
I think the parcel compares to the Randolph Avenue parcel, and then you throw the slope into it, because the speed limits on that road is about the same as Randolph Avenue, and yet there wasn't as much slope compared to Randolph Avenue, and yet we did not like the Randolph. So I would be really surprised if, for whatever reason, we think this is a reasonable site to build in. I think most committee members already, or I already knew this may not be the best site. I'm not sure about all this, but when you presented it, Sean, the last time, the slope was very apparent, and it was clear this wouldn't work out.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think there are enough factors going against the site that it just doesn't make sense for us to pursue it as even, an option. It just, because of the challenges with the site itself, the slope, the narrowness, etc. There's just a lot of impractical things that come with it, but the cost alone, it's a big factor, right? So I don't think it makes sense for us to spend more time on that. We just need to continue with, the road where we were headed and focus our energy there.
Okay. So with all that commentary, we'll move to the vote. So just run through as a roll call vote. And I'll start with the folks online. Tim Lombard.
I'm a yes on the motion to not recommend it.
Okay. Yep. Thank you for thinking that one through. All right. Aqua.
Yes.
All right. Dr. Miranda.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Zulus.
Yes.
Mr. Laurie.
Yes.
Ms. Perishak.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Unanimous. All right. Let's move on to our agenda item 3, which is approval of past minutes. I'll list out the minutes just for the record. They were November 21st, 2022, December 2nd, 2022, December 12th, 2022, December 22nd, 2022, January 23rd, 2023, February 6th, 2023, March 6th, 2023, March 11th, 2023, April 6th, 2023, May 3rd, 2023, June 5th, 2023, June 21st, 2023, and our last meeting, July 7th, 2023. So draft copies of all those minutes have been sent out to everyone. So just see if there's any comments, questions, edits that we want to make to any of these, and check the attendees list, just to see if there's any comments from folks online. Not seeing any. My only comment or edit on there is Tim, there are a couple things in the minutes. I appreciate you doing all, everything all the way through. the template that we had like a standard text that was in there of like insert name here or something like that. I think a couple of them got left with that. So I'll just clean those out and, do it. But outside of that, content wise, everything was fine from what I looked at.
Sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. Sorry. It was when I put that template together, I should have put it in a different color or highlighted it or something. So it's easy to miss sometimes. But essentially at this point, if you're reviewing the minutes now, we'll just wait for a motion to approve those, so we can get all those approved. Or if there are some that people aren't comfortable with, we can hold off. You can make a motion and strip out others if there are comments on them. Yeah, Dr. Miranda, you recognized.
Yes, in looking at the minutes, I wasn't present for the 3/21 2023 meeting, so I wondered how you want to handle if we want to abstain, like if you wanted to group them. Should we just review those that, we were all present? Just don't know how you want to handle that.
Approve them for the ones we attended.
And like that we were all present, right? Because otherwise there will be at least if you want to sort of consider the 3/21/2023 minutes by themselves. I just don't know how you want to handle sort of abstentions, I guess.
Yeah, gotcha. Good question.
Watching a previous select board meeting, where they voted on like multiple minutes. I think the motion was like, approve all the minutes, and then the individual said, vote to approve, and they would list the specific ones they were approving, and then list the specific ones they were abstaining for each individual who was voting.
Okay.
So we could go through and Dr. Miranda could say, approve meeting minutes for 11/21, 12/6, 12/12.
All
abstain for
minutes.
3,
All
6/4.
except.
All except, that might be quicker.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, Dr. Miranda, that's probably the best way. And everybody else, if you were absent for any of the other meetings, you could just abstain from them, and then you can follow it that way. And I think there's multiple abstentions that would put us below a vote or a quorum.
No,
Yeah, no.
Extensions
no,
don't count, I guess.
extensions don't count.
Oh, abstentions don't count. Apologies.
I can make a motion to approve the meeting minutes for the school building committee. For all available dates
As previously listed.
previously listed.
And obviously you'll be abstaining from the ones
Certainly.
before May for the ones that you were not there. So
Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Seconded by Scott. Any discussion?
Can I just have a minute?
Oh,
to
please.
Finish
Sorry.
reviewing.
Yep.
We don't have a perfect attendance or work.
Not with me. I didn't win it. I have a 12:22 and 6 minutes. I couldn't call them on the phone.
3-6.
3-6.
March 6th, 2023. I was there, actually.
It's February 6th.
Oh.
There's
Oh, March.
There's also a March.
Lot of 6.
February 6th.
Yeah, I don't see the 3-6.
I'm at 12:22, 12:22.
Do you have the March 6th up?
Oh, we approved
12:22 has already been
Already
approved.
approved, okay.
Who's-
Yeah, 12/22 was approved.
All right,
I don't see the March 6th though attached, instead of it's attached to the email.
I've got a copy of those. Those were Tim's first minutes that he did. So that was the meeting that we were first at the library when we held it there.
I don't know if I was at that meeting.
Who was that? If you have minutes.
It says everybody was there because that was
Oh.
that was the one that we.
Was it hybrid? Oh, I was there by,
You were-
I was there by,
yeah, because this is the
I
one.
participated by
Mhm.
hybrid.
Yeah.
okay.
Could
Because
you
the-
read forward that, those particular minutes?
Sure.
All right, I'm ready to go, Sean.
So just- I just sent those, the March 6th ones, Mark, so. okay. All right, so the motion was made by Mark, seconded by Scott. Any other further discussions? Look online to make sure. Apologies.
Do we need to amend the motion to remove the 12:22 minutes? Because those are listed on the approval, but they've already been approved.
Yeah, I'll help them.
Okay, I'll amend my motion to approve past meeting minutes as previously listed within the agenda, with the exception of removing the minutes from 12:22.
Sure. Scott still seconds.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? We'll look to the folks online. Seeing none, perfect.
One question
Yes,
for
sir.
you. Do you have me on the 2/6/23 meeting? I wasn't sure about that one. Can't tell from my calendar.
Doesn't appear to list you.
Okay, I thought I had a conflict then, but I just wanted to confirm.
Hold up.
2-6 says Sean, Mike, Betty, Tim.
Yeah, you weren't at that one, so.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other discussion? Just checking. Seeing none. Perfect. We'll move to a roll call vote. Start with our folks online. Tim Lombard,
I approve. I believe I was at on the, what I've just been reading through is I think I was at all of these and I approve of the minutes as presented.
Dr. Miranda.
Okay, let's see if I have this right. I approve all of them, except, and I approved all except for the ones I'm abstaining from, which is 2/6/2023, 12/6/2022, 12/12/2022, and 3/21/2023.
Okay. Aqua.
I approve all minutes where my name is shown as being in attendance.
Smart man.
Zolas.
I'll approve all except for 3 abstentions, 11-21-22, 12-8-22, and 12-12-22.
Okay. Mr. Lauren,
I will abstain from all meeting minutes except for 6-5, 6-21, 6-26, and 7-7, for which I will vote to approve.
Sarah Sharp,
I will vote to approve all meeting minutes. Except abstain from the 2-6-23 and the 7-7-23 meetings.
all right. And myself, I will vote to approve all of them. I was present at every one of them, so. Very good.
All right,
All right, minutes are approved.
apologize, I have to run.
No, no problem. Thank you, Mike.
All right,
Have a good night.
yeah, you too.
All right, back to our agenda. So item number 4, old business. Item B, discussion architectural services for Gow Road RFP. So just some highlights on that. So previously, we've been talking about the opportunity with the new funding that we have to secure architectural services for Gow Road, to kind of take the conceptual layouts that we have now, develop them further, possibly look at teaming with other firms for civil engineering, for stormwater runoff, traffic studies, stuff like that. And I know previously I mentioned for us of, are we looking to have, one architecture firm and then we do off those services on our own separately or something like that. And talking with the town administrator, and under the, before going there, but even under that, for us, we were looking at taking those and directly selecting, as we've done previously for architectural services and stuff like that, based on who we'd like to use. Talking with Mr. Milano, the town administrator, because this would be a chapter 149 construction project, we'll need to go to a design selector panel for our architectural and OPM services. So it kind of covers both bullet items. So what we need to do is start focusing, drafting an RFP for architectural team. Basically, we'll have mechanical, electrical, plumbing, civil, traffic, basically everything under one. And we'll look to them to respond to that RFP with proposals. There'll have to be a design selector committee, which will be made up of some of us, not all of us, and then other representatives throughout the town. And that way everyone can kind of weigh in independently so we can choose it. So that's kind of my update right now for OPM and architectural services. The schedule by which we would do that, or the order by which we would do that, would be an OPM first. The nice thing with an OPM, as we get them, they take on some of the administrative duties, namely meeting minutes. So we would not have to draft meeting minutes each time, scheduling meetings, posting agendas, and all the back end work that we're doing. So just for me, that would be welcomed. After we select the OPM, I think they would also be as part of the design selector panel for the architectural team that we'd be going after. So for everyone on the committee, I just wanted to give that as an update. The town administrator, Nick Milano, and myself, he's resurrecting some RFPs that he utilized before, and then probably work with some of us here to develop what the language of that RFP will be, and kind of specifics that we're going to ask these teams to bring as part of their proposal. So if there are key things as part of this project that you want to see, that have somebody highlight their experiences on and stuff like that, we'll want to start hearing about those things, over the next couple of weeks to a month. So with that, babbling long enough, I'll open up any questions or comments regarding, OPM or architectural services. Yeah, Scott?
How do we go about creating a design selector committee?
So what we're doing is we're following MSBA's template for how to go about selecting OPM, selecting an architectural firm. I think there are prescribed things there, but essentially it's up to us because we're not under the MSBA umbrella right now. But what we're trying to do is work in the same type of framework that if we were accepted to MSBA, we could say, hey, this is kind of the path we've already gone down here, to see if it will allow us to kind of fast track through some of their modules. So the parts of it, obviously there'll be members from this committee. There'll be members from the school committee, would be my guess, even though there's school committee members, with us on this committee. Select board would definitely have a seat, most likely a town administrator. My guess would be Chris Hayden, the facilities director now too, because he'll be the one owning this at the very end of it. So, I was just finding this out, late last week. And I wanted to just bring it to everybody, but I think it's going to be on us to figure out what that committee is going to be made of, how many members, how the voting style, the rankings and stuff go.
Okay.
So as far as I know right now, there isn't a truly prescribed method on how we're doing it. But we're open for any discussion.
I wonder if MSBA has something we can
Leverage.
to
Yeah.
help us.
Mhm. And Mark, for any of the stuff you guys are doing at your school and stuff like that, do you guys have a designer selection committee, or are you guys basically able at the time to pick? I mean,
So-
like,
Yeah, so state agencies, which our schools are, go through the designer selection board.
Mhm.
So
there's actually
there's a
yeah,
board
that's
that
right.
is not a part of our municipality. Municipalities get to make their own.
they have a
board,
couple seats, yeah.
essentially.
No, so MSBA, that's right, I'm remembering now, they have their own designer selection committee. They allow you to have, I think, 2 seats from the town. One's typically one from school committee, one from school building committee. But the remainder or the majority of the makeup of their selection panel is independent on their own through MSBA. So essentially for the town, we wouldn't be doing that, but we'd probably try to mimic a similar makeup to what they have there.
Does look like MSBA does have some guidelines for selecting an OPM,
Mhm.
so maybe we can leverage this document. Say Exhibit A.
Are we not able to just designate the school building committee as the designer selection committee?
We probably can, but I would prefer to keep it a little more open for others too. So I'm not, it's something we need to talk about as a committee, whether we feel we need full representation of the entire committee or a certain number. But I think I don't know. My end is, I think it would be good having others from a few other boards that are affected or included as part of this to also weigh in on it too. Yeah. Any comments from anybody online regarding to architectural or OPM services?
I'm not sure what the selection criteria is. I've heard comments about looking at the MSBA, but would it make sense to have everyone on the committee here, every voting member, in addition to other committee or relevant committee representatives from other committees, so that we show more transparency Just remembering some of the comments that were made by not so well informed town members when we had interactions. I think the more people we have in the process, the more transparent the process would look.
Yeah, thanks, Aqua. I tend to agree of having, others from other committees. I think for us, we need to look at what the important things of this project are. For example, if sustainability is a key issue from there, then, maybe we reach out and bring, a member from another board where that board focuses on sustainability. Ongoing maintenance and stuff like that. That's where I look at Chris Hayden. And he would be, somebody we would want to weigh in. This project at the end is going to have a number of stakeholders to it at the end of the day. Identifying those stakeholders and what their needs are. We typically call it conditions of satisfaction when we start a project, and we list out what that condition of satisfaction is of what will make this project successful. Identify a champion for it, and let them shepherd it through. But I think in the selection committee, for this, it's more of identifying what are some of those rating things we're going to be looking at, and then, diversify the group so that all those bases are covered.
So just
Yes,
looking
sir.
through the MSBA stuff, says the things that must be done is the MSBA must review the request for services. And at the beginning, it says that really the MSBA is involved once they invite us into the feasibility study phase. But then they must review the request for services. We have to submit an OPM narrative to the MSBA for review. And the MSBA may require the district to attend an OPM review panel meeting. Selected OPM must be approved by the MSBA. Must be underlined. They do provide a list of currently acting OPMs, or that's OPMs who are currently working on MSBA funded projects.
Yeah, that could be part of our, decision criteria too. If when we write the RFP for focusing now on an OPM, we could list it that they have to be, listed with MSBA. So essentially that way it excludes, other OPMs that don't have school experience, and makes that job to filter it down a little bit easier too. Reading.
And it also excludes the firms represented by multiple of us on this call currently.
That's one of the other ones that will come into, conflict of interest. If you're representing a firm that, is going after this, I would highly recommend them not to go after it because, probably wouldn't, happen just due to optics and stuff like that.
Oh, no, I think it's explicitly disallowed.
Yeah, I just know in some of the bigger firms, there's certain parts of the firm that doesn't talk to the other parts. So it's more of, if you're aware of that other department in your firm, to let them know.
Sean, will you be sharing more information on the last topic you talked about? So if you're working for a firm that cannot compete, so that everybody understands and do not unintentionally make a mistake. Or maybe the firm is so large that one arm can talk to the other, whatever the rules are, so that everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, we'll talk about that as it gets nearer for when we would make that selection. It would probably be good to kind of have a brush up, but we can talk with town council as far as the, the ethical responsibilities for that, essentially when to recuse yourself from a vote. Or abstain. Any other comments or questions regarding OPMs or architects or anything like that?
So what's
Yes,
the,
sir.
sorry,
No problem.
so do we need a motion here? Like, what was the next step? Just that Mr. Milano will be kind of working on crafting something that then we expect to come back here for our review and our vote for approval.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I think essentially our next steps is to craft a framework for the RFP for an OPM and an architect. Populate that with whatever information we're looking for within that RFP, and then get it to a final stage. And then when it's at that stage, basically before it's ready to be published, the committee would review it, digest it, vote to approve it. And I think once it's voted to approve, then we can issue it.
I know we submitted our application to the MSBA,
Mhm.
and, we are hopeful. Do we have a contact at the MSBA? Assume they have some.
The district does. So,
Templates.
yeah, so what was happening before, there is a lady and she has a hard to pronounce last name, if I remember correctly. I don't even want to try for it, but she was the contact person for MSBA. Previously, I think Garth was talking to him, I forget, just mainly because it was Superintendent Jed, and after Superintendent Jed, I believe it was interim Garth
Mhm.
that was doing it. I'm not sure if Mr. Burrows has picked that up yet. But essentially there is a contact, there is somebody that we can reach out to there.
Okay, would Superintendent Burrows be the individual to do that?
Correct.
Okay, so that's essentially, we want to see if the MSBA has a template so that they approve whatever RFS we put together.
Mhm.
And then also let them know we are going through this project, so we ultimately can get their approval on the selection in case they end up approving us down the line, that we're still keeping ourselves within those
Yeah,
guardrails.
the reality is they probably wouldn't. I mean, they wouldn't give us an approval for something we're doing now until we get selected, and then kind of run back through the modules that were there.
Yeah, if we're not approved by the feasibility process, they're probably not gonna approve us, but I would assume we, at least if we're saying we're continuing down this way, we want to make sure that we're doing so in a way that is okay with you, so that if you end up choosing us, we don't have to go backwards, we can keep moving forwards. Maybe that's.
That would be,
naivete.
that would be ideal, but the reality is, I think because it's a government agency, they would have us start their new module, redo all the feasibility studies, get to the point that we can get to a designer selection committee. If it happened to be that same person that we're doing, it would be great, but the reality of that is probably it would not.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Looking online for raised hands from members. Yeah, Dr. Miranda.
Yeah, just generally, Sean, if you
Yep.
can sort of to the timeline for this work, sort of how soon are we hoping to have all of these two different documents drafted?
My goal originally, when we were talking about this, from our previous meeting of us just selecting, working, essentially working with DRA, I was hoping to have that by the end of the summer and get them going. My guess now is we'll probably aim for the end of the summer, call it September 1st, which is a Friday, to issue the RFP. That would be, call that a goal to set. There'll be some time for them to submit their qualifications for that RFP, and then essentially run through the designer selection committee. So I haven't really dove into it. I'm doing off the cuff right now, but I would say sometime in November, by the time we select somebody. And then, they would hit the ground going at that point.
So would we aim to have the committee sort of put together before September 1st, or after?
Probably, it could be a little bit after, because,
Okay.
you know, we'd be issuing the RFP out for people to respond to. But essentially, the true selection committee of who's gonna make that selection really wouldn't need to be done until we received all the other ones back. But I think the process by which we go by to again, identify, you know, what the portions of this project are gonna be and the stakeholders of that, that's gonna play into this whole selection committee or how that comes out. Oh, good,
Yep, thanks.
no problem. Yes, sir.
Sorry.
No,
So if Nick is taking the point on the crafting of the RFS or RFP,
RFP.
the, you know, what are our next steps as it relates to the current structure of this committee? You think we should have members, obviously, of other committees? Is this like creating a proposal that we think, you know, 3 members of the school building committee, member of the planning board, member of the select board, like whatever that you're thinking, that we come back and then vote on that as a committee of saying this is what we think is like the right mix of people, and do that at our next meeting, and then approach folks to like apply from those
Yeah.
committees.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because like typically the only townwide committees that have other committees on it, you know, select board creates committees for here. I know there's others. Or the moderator appoints people like us and creates a committee and stuff like that.
Mhm.
The creation of a designer selection committee is beyond me of how it's done, or whether it just all falls on us to make that selection, because the funding will all be ours.
Mhm.
So that's the other one that. And again, this was brought to my attention late last week
Yeah.
on Friday, so I haven't really had time to digest everything, and I'm just kind of putting it out there to gather input back from you guys to further the discussion. Because that's part of it too, is if it's funding that's allocated to the school building committee, you know, maybe there might be others that can weigh in on votes, but their votes are weighted differently. I'm not, again, I'm not sure the makeup of essentially how we go about this.
The MSBA document says a selection committee was formed by the school building committee to prepare a request for services. So it sounds like we pick who's on it.
Mhm.
The one requirement is that somebody with a certified public purchasing official.
Yep. Yes, sir.
I'm a certified public purchasing official.
You were on
All
it,
right,
right?
you're hired.
There we go.
Yeah, I think you're the only one.
So Sean, I think
Lapses
You
in
may
October,
want-
that's. Well, I renew it.
Yeah, go for it.
you may want to talk and find out, since the funds was approved for this committee, what impact does that have in bringing other people in to decide how those funds are spent?
Yep.
Is there historical background for it? There's got to be something like that in the past. Are they allowed to just provide guidance, and this committee voting members are the ones who dispense or decide how the money is spent? Is there any legal thing we have to watch out for here?
Yeah, I agree. And then that was partially why, you know, like I was saying, is I found out about this last Friday when I sat down with Mr. Milano. I'm working on right now getting a better understanding of what that's gonna be. And I wanted to present it to our committee to, you know, get this feedback for different things, specifically for what you just raised of, you know, if the money is allocated to the school building committee, you know, and, you know, direction, you know, decisions are made for the use of that money, I think it should all come from school building committees. So, you know, those are kind of, you know, things that we'll be bringing up and talking about it, you know, as this becomes further. There's nothing being decided tonight on it.
So Sean, it sounds to me that the selection committee, right, the one who's reviewing the proposals, would be making a recommendation to us, but that the final decision would be with this body. Would that be correct? Sort of if we follow sort of that thinking and that's what we're asking for from that committee is just a recommendation.
It is, so as of right now, it's undefined, so.
Okay.
So it's hard to answer any of the questions specifically because.
Yeah.
You know, that selection committee is informed, we don't have a role for them right now, so, you know.
No, but, yeah.
Mhm.
But-
I understand where you.
What I was saying is that's how we would, that would be
Form it.
sort of their
Yep.
charge, right? Their charge would be to form a recommendation, but not to make a final selection, I guess. If we wanted to maintain the sort of the oversight of those funds.
Yeah, so those are, you know, some of the things that we would need to discuss further.
Yeah.
Then it goes to short reference
Right.
check.
Yeah. Yeah, the SBA guidelines seem to say it's a screening committee. Give a short list to the school committee, who does the school building committee, who then does the reference checks and goes ahead with the appointment. So,
Yeah,
only the school building committee can spend school building committee money. right?
Correct.
You have to vote on every warrant and sign off on every warrant, so
Mhm.
that's no one, and the ultimate spending authority lies here.
Okay,
That's just the nature of town finance, but from looking at this with the MSBA, it looks like they really are a screening committee.
Yeah.
To give you all the data and a short list, and then you finish up with reference checks and.
Yep.
And in the case of SBA, you have to give your whole proposal to the SBA, here are the short list, these are what we did, and this is why we would like to do this company.
okay.
Kind of ranks them first, second, and third, but it doesn't say that you proceed with who's ranked first, because the committee will choose one of the three.
So it's shortlisted.
Yeah.
Okay. So, so what it sounded like, Dr. Miranda, just to give some feedback in case you weren't able to follow in the room, so. Glenn and Scott Tereshak were looking at MSBA, so what it looked like, the designer selection committee for MSBA would take the number of respondents and then create a short list, you know, approximately 3, and then present that filtered list back to the school building committee to make the selection out of those 3. So they would act as essentially a filter for it, if I understand it correctly. So I just wanted to relay that in case you weren't able to follow it, because it was kind of a side conversation. Any other questions or comments in regards to OPM or architectural services? Hearing none. All right. Next thing on our agenda is item 4, old business. D, discussion of land appraisals. So I had a discussion with Landvest earlier today. The gentleman's name was, apologies, Chris Fowler. So Landvest is a company that does appraisals of properties throughout the Commonwealth. This gentleman, Chris Fowler, has done land appraisals for Article 97 land swaps around the Commonwealth already, so he's familiar with what we're doing. The term that he was bringing up, that he was saying that they don't do it, the ecological evaluations, which he said is kind of a new thing that's come out, but as we're made aware, the EOA for the state, if we want to call it that shortly, does those ecological evaluations as part of their review for the packets that we sent them. So we're only going to be asking Landvest to do monetary appraisals for all the parcels. So at this point, you know, it was just an initial touching call, an introductory call today. I'm going to be sending him all the information of the parcel IDs that we're doing, the acreages of all of them, any maps or anything that we have from our files. And I'll send those over to him for essentially his use. After he has time to kind of digest that and stuff like that, he'll be able to provide an overall timeline of when he could complete them. You know, he asked me, I was like, you know, typical answer, as soon as possible. this one guy I used to work with. He never used to say as soon as possible. He used to say as soon as humanly possible. AHP. You write it on everything. He just basically meant he's like, put it on your list and as quickly as you can get to it, please get to it. So I relayed that to him, and then similarly, as he has a chance to digest through all that stuff, he'll be able to give us a price proposal for all those appraisals too. So with that, in regards to appraisals, that was my update, and I'll open it up to any commentary. Aqua?
For the appraisal, I'm assuming we're going to limit that to the Gile Road project. Is that correct?
That is correct. So it's only the parcels, Aqua, that are associated with the land swap that we did.
Okay.
Nothing else.
Okay, just wanted to be sure that initial discussion where we've decided not to pursue it, that we're not going to spend money to appraise a place that we've already decided that we're not pursuing. The Brush Hill Road will not be included in this, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Correct. So basically what this is, so what this is, just for everyone's information, just so we're all on the same page. Part of the documentation we have to submit to the state for the Article 97 land swap are appraisal values of all the parcels that are only the parcels listed as part of the land swap. So we have that list of parcels from all the presentations we did up till town meeting. And then essentially for that, we'll be providing that over to Landvest, and they'll be using that as their guideline for all the land going into Article 97 and also all the land coming out of Article 97. Yep.
Thank you. That was more helpful. Thank you.
Nope. You're welcome. Any other questions?
Should we discuss the public comment regarding this piece, or the claim that we don't have the authority to do this? And I can just say my piece, like, looking at the exact language of the vote was town vote to authorize school building committee to employ an OPM, architect, engineer, or other professionals for the purpose of conducting feasibility studies or preparing detailed plans, specifications, working drawings, and other necessary documents.
Correct.
For the construction. So I would assume this falls under other necessary documents, given this is necessary in order to proceed with the land swap, which is necessary to construct the building.
And it's professional services.
And it's professional services.
Correct.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're.
I'm in agreement.
I'm in agreement.
Any, again, just looking to our members that are online, any other further comments or question about land appraisals? Seeing none, perfect. All right, let me just jump to our next agenda item. So new business, moving on. Item 5. Scroll down, apologies. So item 5A, discussion possible vote, SBC positions, vice chair, secretary, treasurer. What I've been thinking about with this agenda item. Previously, Ada Rosemarin acted as the vice chair, and then as she stepped up at school committee to be chair. We were essentially left as a void for vice chair, so I've been kind of operating on my own. So essentially, we're looking for a volunteer or somebody that would be willing to step up as vice chair, just for in case of the time I couldn't make a meeting to run the meeting, and also just somebody to bend their ear once a week or something like that, similar to what I've been doing with Ada while we're going through everything. So the other ones that are there, secretaries essentially has been Tim. So I was hoping he had to jump off so we can just nominate him. That's an easy way to do it. And then the last one that's there is I put treasurer on there mainly because over the past couple of years, the $40,000 that we've had, I've managed processing the invoices and tracking what we had for financing on there. But I think with the larger amounts of money that we're gonna have here, it's quickly gonna eclipse. My capabilities or abilities to keep up with it, so I was hoping to have somebody else. Essentially volunteer for that, so that's kind of my overview of those 3 positions. So if we start, at the top for vice chair, just kind of look around the room, see if anybody's interested.
I'm happy to volunteer my time if it is helpful.
I appreciate it. All right. And then I think Tim for secretary, I think he's already self-volunteered for that one. The last one is essentially treasurer, and at this point, treasurer is really not doing anything because until we get through the designer selection committee and do stuff like that, I think land use would be the only stuff coming up.
Sean, are we allowed to nominate people we think very qualified and can do the job? Like Scott could be a very good treasurer.
As long as you're not nominating me, Aqua, we'll see. But I just want to make sure people are okay with that too. I know everyone's busy, but again, this is for this project, the magnitude of it's going to quickly start, eclipsing what I have for free time, which is already slim.
In many ways, the town accountant is the town treasurer because they're all the purchase orders and everything are going through that. So, we could always just generate reports.
Yeah, that's basically what it's been of, I would email Amy just saying, how much funding do we have left in the bank?
Right.
And just kind of report back here. It's not really the.
Because literally, there's not much else. I mean, the body acts as the treasurer, the body approves all invoices, all purchase orders, and things like that.
Yep.
So it's just and actually what will happen when you get an OPM is, they'll be doing. Yeah.
Well, that's the other part of this
Yeah.
too. All these things here are just kind of ride out until we get an OPM on board, which is hopefully going to be this fall. But I was doing it this way because I've been looking at the call it bins of work of everything I've been working on.
Yeah.
And certain things just get distracting. So meeting minutes, I was doing my best to kind of spread those out and fill in where needed. Tim's kind of taken that on. The vice chair thing, I appreciate, helping with that, and we can just talk, to get that going. And then, like I said, secretary was just another kind of bin of things recently with invoices from, DRA architecture for the stuff they were doing last year, the BSC group work for what they were doing. It wasn't just one invoice, it was kind of percentage of invoices that were going along. So, but again, most of that stuff's completed, so we get turned over to an OPM, but it's more knowing that we have $275,000 that's there now, tracking that, making sure, as we start allocating it out, where we're putting that money or what's left over.
I'm happy to do it. Sounds like it'll be short-lived though.
Don't mind.
No, no.
I
Just
can generate reports.
That would be helpful. I can kind of set it up as a budget.
Yeah, I just need to get Amy to give me access to that fund, but that's easy.
Perfect tag team.
Do we need to do an official motion and vote for these positions, or are these more informal in nature? So
I put it as a vote on there just to make it formal, just in case it came up. There hasn't really been anything there, and I'm fine if we want to keep it informal.
Can we vote for Tim when he is not around and has not been informed of this?
We can vote for Tim for every position as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Kidding, trying to, I think at this point, let's just keep it unofficial, because again, there's no really, in our charge, there wasn't really anything official there, some,
9.
That works.
we still have quorum.
Yeah.
Is the
Yeah,
question.
we're just doing a quorum check.
yeah, we're still in quorum. Yep. So yeah, I'm fine with that, keeping it unofficial for now, and just kind of just keep it as hats, so we wear that way, that works. Sound good? All right. As the janitor goes rolling by. The other thing that's there is item 5, new business, item B, short-term space update. So I know for us right now, we've been focusing, mainly on the Gow Road project, or that was kind of our efforts last year. So leading up to that, there was a couple efforts at the time last fall to look at short-term solutions for what we were doing. So Bill Ritchie, just this is more for informational purposes for people that might not know. Bill Ritchie had looked at an opportunity of putting modular classrooms outside the high school. The problem with that is I forget how many classrooms it was, but it was an estimated cost of $10 to $12 million. And it was just classroom space without really a definitive educational program that was going into those spaces. But he had a conceptual study that was done for there. In addition to that, as that was coming around, there was the opportunity working with the town of Canton and Reebok's facility at Point 32 Health, where there was space there that we investigated, essentially to put a daycare in there. But again, by the time we could turn around and get the balls rolling on that, it got taken away. And did the town of Canton take that to use it?
Point 32 indicated they were, the town of Canton had interest in using it. I don't know that that has happened.
But essentially, they had basically pulled it back.
They pulled it.
Okay. So, for us, the space needs in the school is still at a critical level that we know about. I know Mark on the facilities subcommittee, you guys have been working on some options there. And I know most of this short-term space stuff has been led by the facilities subcommittee of the school committee, not the school building committee. But we're here to help with whatever
So
you need.
what's happening this summer with Superintendent Burrows on board? We've actually started some work with the leadership team. One of the things we want to look at are some of exactly those issues. What are the academic needs?
Yep.
So I've got a survey out to the principals at the moment. We're doing a compendium of all spaces that are currently being used for something other than, sort of updating the maps we've had in the past.
Yep.
All functions that are being performed in spaces for which they were not intended. And to really get a full listing of that, then we have a leadership retreat coming up where the central office and principals are going to sit down and talk about the needs that way. Our goal is to be able to look at, of all the needs, what are the pressing ones? What are the ones, for instance, if a space like, X thousand feet showed up, what would you use it for?
Yeah.
Or, in the case of modulars, where would you put them that forwards the ultimate goal of having a 5, 6, 7, 8 breakout of schools? You don't want to just drop them somewhere for the sake of dropping them somewhere. So basically what we want to take a look at before we get into the construction of anything is what are the educational goals that we would prioritize as the highest for different scenarios. So the administration can come up with a reasonable proposal that we can bring forward to facilities advisory and ultimately the school building committee. But until realistically we get the educational needs down first and prioritized and understood, it doesn't really to us make sense to talk about, well, how much would 6 portable classrooms behind the high school cost when you don't frankly know what you would use them for in a coherent way. And in fact, that may be a terrible place to put 6 modular classrooms, although they would fit there. It's one of those circumstances where in order to evaluate anything, you really have to have a complete understanding of the educational needs and a sort of a prioritization. And it might be on the sort of level that if X happens, what will we do? If Y happens, what, so basically you can react. On one hand, react to things that may or may not happen. On the other hand, plan for things that won't happen. In the case where none of the options arise, what would you do to carry you forward until you got to the place where you were building something? And again, you don't want to do anything that sort of impedes your ability to create the new structure. I mean, if the goal is a K4, 5, 6, 7, 8 high school, you don't want to do anything that gets in the way of that.
that disrupts, yeah.
Right, you it really, hopefully, actually eases the process forward, so. But that's something the goal, is actually, we have, as I say, a leadership retreat, just the central office, the principals at the beginning of, August. And, I've already sent out, the request to all the principals and given them some forms to fill out and things like that, so we'll have it collected by then, where we, just as a group, sit down, and that's one of the things the superintendent wants to work through. And we have, as I say, a couple of days of meetings, just a small group internally at the beginning of August before we get it. Get out to the larger leadership group and eventually to facilities advisory and if necessary to hear. I mean, I think you'll be busy enough, but we'll.
We get a lot of, and there's a lot of people in this committee that can help with that
Yeah.
stuff, you know what I mean, to dig into it, so, we're happy to help.
Yeah.
So,
But
anything-
anyway, that's what we've been talking about internally for the last couple of weeks.
okay.
I just accentuate, that all sounds great, thank you for that update. When the facility advisory subcommittee was meeting, in June, we talked about this kind of the short-term space, needs and discussions and support, with the district, kind of being a primary focus of those conversations and that group's conversations, so I echo Glenn's statement that, I think whatever reports this group, would like in order to keep updated, like, I think that'd be great. I think, this group have a lot of stuff on their plate, so being able to kind of subdivide that work across the two committees and allow the other committee to help pick up some of that. And certainly, there's a lot of expertise in this group, so, being able to bring questions or issues that pop up within those other conversations, kind of get the expertise, I think is something we would appreciate if that was still available to us, but otherwise kind of can focus all the kind of most of the work and conversations within that committee, if that is amenable to everyone else.
That's fine. I just want to make you guys aware, while we're busy, for some of that short-term stuff that's there, we're happily, jump on, help out, or, whatever we need. Because, sorry, dry throat. I think with us, as we pull an OPM on, as we pull an architectural team on, our load lightens a little bit.
Yep.
Because they'll be doing a lot of it, we'll be interacting with them. Which should free us up to help out with some of that other stuff if you need us to.
Yeah, and at that point, again, the conversations on instructional goals and plans.
Yeah,
should
that's
be a little bit
that's
more condensed too. Right.
any questions from anybody, any members online? So seeing none. All right. Item 5, which should actually be item 6, agenda item, our next meeting. So I wanted to try to get our meetings essentially back on a rhythm. They were a little scattered leading up to town meeting. And then just knowing some of the things that we need to work on for the RFP and meeting every so often. So previously, our committee was meeting every 3 weeks. So I wanted to, offer that as a suggestion. The other way is if we wanted to just do every month, first or second Monday of the month. I'm fine with whatever the committee decides. If we went monthly, I would just ask that we make ourselves available in case something comes up that we need to, jump into a meeting, if we're at the beginning of the month. Just in case something would come up, but trying to get a rhythm or a schedule to meetings. Those are kind of my 2 options I looked at, every 3 weeks or, once a month on a specific Monday of the month.
I'm fine with either every 3 weeks or once a month. I think either way, we only puts us 1 meeting between now and when we want to get an RFP out. So we've got some work to do in between.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to be the one, but I'm almost thinking at least for the time being until we get an OPM on board is able to push some of this stuff along, that we might need to meet kind of every other week.
I'm fine with that too.
Put that on the, at least the agenda, and if we don't need one, fantastic, and we can cancel it. But kind of schedule that out through, say, November, and then from there, and certainly reassess and pull back whenever we feel like we need. I just would rather have more time on the calendar for folks
Getting together.
to make sure we can, hit these marks and deadlines.
Every 2 weeks, good for you.
Fine with me.
And just looking in Dr. Miranda, Aqua, every 2 weeks on Monday night, seems good.
Yeah, that worked for me for the most part.
Yeah, no, the nice thing with it will be able to like forecast it out long enough that we can, we just put it on everybody's calendar and we'll know. So, Aqua, does that work for you also?
For now, if it works for everyone else, I'll have to make sure it works for me. And when it doesn't, I'll maybe just get more information after the meeting.
Yeah, that's fine.
But for now,
We can touch.
For now, I'll make sure it works. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And I think for Tim, it works too, when he's not here.
Can I propose, I mean, we're talking about
Mhm.
regular cadence, the first and third Monday, is that, you said you were normally meeting on Monday?
Yeah, Mondays have been our typical night, but if we're gonna go every other week, because the times where there's like, I'd rather just keep it, every other Monday.
Gotcha, okay.
There are months with 5 Mondays.
There are a couple.
Yeah, that's some of those things caught us before, so. Does that work?
If you want to schedule, book, say, the next 2, I'll run ahead when we leave here.
Mhm.
Because since the internet's not down, I can't look up the booking calendar for this room. And, we might have to do a couple perturbations to avoid things like Columbus Day and things like that.
That's fine.
So, but if you want to schedule the next 2 with the intent of being every other week, I'll pull out our booking schedule and make sure this room's available.
Yeah, so essentially our next 2 meetings would be August 7th and August 21st.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then we would be hitting
Labor Day.
Labor Day and Columbus Day.
So there'll probably be
So,
a 3-week in there, and then you can go every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Get those.
Yeah, take a pause.
Yeah, can we just schedule this through November right now? Is that?
Sure, let's do
Okay,
it.
so if we say the 7th of the 21st. The 11th of September.
Yep.
And the 9th.
9th is Columbus Day.
9th is Columbus.
So you go 16.
So go to another 3 weeks. Yeah. 16.
And then it'll be it.
The 13th, I guess, would be the next one.
13th. And then the
Now,
27th.
is Veterans Day is a Saturday, so it'd be observed with Friday, so 13th, be
Yeah.
okay.
Mhm.
Sorry, but I couldn't hear all those dates, so if we can send them out or something.
Yeah, I'll send those out, Dr. Miranda. Do you think just up, do you want to go to the end of the year?
Yeah, sure. I mean,
Well, I mean-
we're gonna hit the holiday anyway, so we're only probably talking about one more meeting there if we do the.
Yeah, I think,
27th
well,
and
just,
the-
yeah, 'cause we'll
11th.
have town meeting in December, right? At some point. So
At some
it's
point, yeah.
Probably good to only go. to
I
the
think
end of-
I think the next one after November 27th is you're gonna hit the
Yeah.
special town meeting.
Okay.
I think that's, that would be the 11th, and I think that's the date they booked us. They booked the auditorium for special town meeting, I believe.
Okay. All right, so what I'll do is I'll assemble these dates.
Yeah, I have them written down. I'll double check on the calendars here.
Perfect.
A little problem is that our rental coordinator left last Friday, and we're in the process of trying to hire a new one. So I am, we'll have to dig into the software a little bit to figure out exactly where everything is. We don't have someone doing the booking at this exact moment. So
Okay.
we'll get there.
You, the rental coordinator?
I hope not.
Yeah, and
Add it here.
if not, we can, there's other spaces. I mean,
Yeah.
the conference room at the library was nice. And I can work with Linda Napoli at Town Hall to see if there's any rooms up there, but I think
Yeah.
it'll be good.
It's up to you. I mean, it's nice to
Yeah, I
have it
would
in
put-
one place,
I
so you
would
know,
Correct. I would
we're
prefer
not
to
jumping
keep it-
around. This week's at the school, next week's the library.
Yeah,
It's much easier to,
yeah. I would
have
prefer
a
to
home.
keep it here.
Yeah,
Okay.
the owl is also very nice.
Yeah, yeah.
As I said before.
The town has an owl too.
Oh.
That I can borrow it at times.
yeah, they like doors.
But I think, yeah, for us, we've got our next meetings set. And so our last thing on the agenda is to adjourn. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Make a motion to adjourn. Scott? Second,
Second,
Mark, Lauren, second. All right, any discussion? No. So around on the computer, Aqua,
Yes.
Dr. Miranda,
Yes.
thank you. Mark,
yes.
Scott,
Yes.
and myself, yes. Perfect. So yeah, we'll be meeting, our next meeting is August 7th, and Dr. Miranda, I'll send all those dates out so you'll have them.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a great night.